They're wearing a mask of confidence, pretending like everything's under control, but behind that forced smile is a storm they can no longer manage. What they're hiding desperately is that their entire world is falling apart piece by piece. Privately, they're battling legal consequences so serious they could end up behind bars. They've come to terms with the painful reality that letting you go was their only option, but they'll never admit just how much that decision is destroying them from the inside. They don't want you to see the truth, the desperation, the unraveling, the weakness, so they keep projecting strength, trying to protect their image. But beneath that false exterior, they're losing everything, and the worst part, they're powerless to stop the crash that's already begun. You always sensed this day would arrive. They didn't. They mocked your silence when you walked away, dismissed your warnings and laughed when you spoke the truth. They carried themselves like they were above the law, beyond consequences, untouchable. Now the very name they once flaunted to gain power and respect has become a public spectacle plastered across headlines as a cautionary tale. News anchors deliver the story with heavy voices: breaking news, high-profile arrest, a stunning fall from grace, mugshot replaces glamour shots, courtroom doors slam like thunder. They were once respected, feared, even envied. Now they're the focus of flashing cameras, their face hollow, pale, a shadow of the image they once worked so hard to maintain. The world watches, and so do you, but not with bitterness, not with pride, just with quiet knowing, because this was always coming. Justice moves slowly, but it never stops. Months of investigations, documents unearthed, whistleblowers stepping forward, sealed testimonies cracked open. They thought they covered every trail, erased every trace, but lies always leave fingerprints, and those fragments have come together to form a noose around the empire they built on deceit. The same people who once protected them, cleaned up after them and sang their praises are now testifying against them, turning on their former leader to save themselves. As they sit in that courtroom, cameras flashing, faces fixed on them from all directions, they silently plead for mercy, but it's too late. Their lawyers scramble, arguments fall flat, every legal escape blocked. They glance around, judge, jury, walls, realizing for the first time they are truly trapped. The gavel slams, guilty. They exhale, but there is no relief, only resignation. The weight of their sins, their delusion and their downfall collapses onto them all at once. Their hands shake, their eyes empty, haunted by the truth they tried so hard to deny. And you don't need to gloat, you don't need to say a word. The universe already delivered the justice. They were convinced they'd remain untouchable forever, that their status, power and influence would shield them from consequences. But justice doesn't bend to ego, it doesn't flinch at wealth, fame, or the illusion of respectability. Justice is blind to reputation and deaf to excuses. It only listens to the truth, and today that truth has finally roared. They thought they were meticulous, with every document shredded, every shady transaction hidden, every potential witness silenced. For years, they moved like shadows, leaving wreckage in their wake, yet managing to stay clean. No fingerprints, no trace. Bribes were paid, threats were made, and secrets were buried deep. They told themselves their money made them invisible, but you always knew better. Lies may sink below the surface, but they never disappear. They wait quietly, patiently for the day they rise. Now that day has come. The past they tried to erase is reconstructing itself with relentless precision. Forensic accountants, digital investigators, and legal analysts are uncovering the truth, layer by layer. What's surfacing is far more devastating than anyone imagined. The financials don't align. Hidden offshore accounts aren't so hidden anymore. Emails thought to be deleted have been recovered. Encrypted conversations are being decoded. Falsified documents have been flagged, matched, and verified. Every attempt they made to erase their wrongdoing has failed. The very digital systems they used to control and manipulate are now turning against them. Every shady deal, every forged signature, every secret payment, it's all being tracked and brought to light. And now the people they once trusted are no longer protecting them. Former business partners, inner circle collaborators, even close confidants are stepping forward, not out of loyalty, but out of self-preservation. They know what's coming, and they don't want to be dragged down with them. Those once loyal allies now sit across from investigators, pale and trembling, giving sworn testimonies. The hushed conversations, secret handshakes and dirty agreements are being repeated in courtrooms, logged into files, and headlined in news reports. Every time they hear those words, names, dates, evidence, it hits them like a freight train. They're no longer the puppeteers, they're the exhibit, the proof, the story, and it's being written in permanent ink. They've become exact what they feared most, living proof of their own corruption. Their crimes are now documented in sealed indictments, official records, and legal transcripts. They truly believed they were above it all. But the truth has claws, and once it surfaces, it tears through illusions without mercy. You sensed it before they did. The sudden silence, the nervous glances, the hesitant tone in their voice. They clung to the belief that the system worked for them, that status and wealth guaranteed immunity. But the system is now closing in. Every call, every message, every financial move, they're all under surveillance, dissected, catalogued and used against them. Their elite lawyers sit across from them, tight-lipped and stone-faced, knowing the inevitable. There are no more loopholes, no more favors, and no more misunderstandings, just consequences. This isn't a misunderstanding, this is a full-scale prosecution, and you're witnessing it unfold in real time. You're watching their confidence unravel into panic, their arrogance dissolve into dread. They once laughed at the idea of facing consequences, dismissing every warning with smug smiles and rehearsed excuses. They were masters of deflection, always able to talk their way out of trouble until now, because this time, it's not a rival or a critic they're dealing with, it's the law. And the law doesn't care about charm, threats or high-powered connections, it deals only in evidence, and the evidence is damning. Subpoenas are arriving like clockwork, slicing through their carefully guarded circle. Those they once trusted, allies they thought would never turn, are now scrambling for plea deals to save themselves. Every phone call, every text, every word spoken is now a loaded weapon that could be used against them. They're alone, cornered in a legal labyrinth with no way out. Still, they cling to denial, filing appeals, spinning new lies, hoping to delay what can't be stopped. But you know the truth. They're not waiting for the inevitable, it's already here, and it's closing in fast. You remember who they used to be, pulling up in luxury cars, dripping in designer labels, walking with that air of untouchable pride. Their wealth wasn't just for comfort, it was their weapon. They used money to manipulate, to buy silence, to maintain the illusion of power. They handed out favors and bribes like candy, keeping people indebted, controlling them through generosity soaked in ulterior motives. But now the illusion has shattered, the money is gone, and with it their entire facade. Their lavish lifestyle has vanished in an instant. No more private jets or penthouse suites, no more exclusive restaurants or designer boutiques. The stores that once rolled out red carpets now swipe their card and decline it. Bookings are blocked, purchases denied. Reality hits like a freight train. They're out of money, out of resources, and out of options. Bank accounts are frozen, credit cards maxed and useless. The IRS wants their share. The banks are calling in debts, and loan sharks, they don't offer grace periods. The irony is sharp. They used to sneer at the idea of being broke, mocking those who struggled as if poverty were a personal failure. Now they're the ones drowning, and the people they once controlled with their wealth, they're not answering calls, they're not offering help. You can see it now in the fear behind their eyes, in the clenched jaw of someone who finally understands no one is coming to rescue them. Their once loyal friends have disappeared like smoke in the wind. The phone calls have stopped. The invitations dried up. They're not VIPs anymore. No one's rolling out the red carpet or saving them a seat at the table. They're no longer feared, admired, or even acknowledged. All that remains is desperation. And desperation makes people do ugly, pathetic things. You can already see the shift, the pleading in their voice, the sudden hollow apologies, the fake tears, the frantic offers to make things right. But you know better. It's not remorse, it's survival instinct. They don't regret what they did. They only regret losing everything that came with the illusion. You're watching it unfold, not with bitterness or a thirst for revenge, but with clarity, a deep, unwavering certainty. Because you always knew what they refused to accept. Money never made them powerful. It only bought silence. It only made people pretend. Without it, they are exposed. No money, no influence, no protection, and now no mercy. These are the same people who once laughed at your struggles, belittled your journey, and made your hard-earned resilience a punchline. They mocked your grind, scoffed at your setbacks, preached that being broke was a choice, that suffering was just laziness in disguise. Work harder, be smarter. You never forgot those words. But now it's them knocking on doors, asking for a place to crash, hoping someone will pick up their call. The eviction notices aren't warnings anymore. They're stacking up like bricks, heavy with consequence. Landlords aren't moved by stories of who they used to be. Banks don't process overdraft sob stories. The world doesn't pause to honor the past when rent is due and the lights are off. Reality is banging at the door, and this time it's not asking permission. You see it in their face, the dark circles, the jittery eyes, the heavy, slow movements of someone who hasn't slept in days. Because when you don't know where you'll lay your head at night, sleep isn't a luxury, it's a memory. Those same city streets they once sped through in blacked-out luxury cars, they're walking them now, step by humiliating step, not with purpose but with panic. Looking for a break, a handout, a miracle, but their phones are silent, their inbox is empty, no one is answering anymore, not the friends they lavished with gifts, not the employees they controlled with paychecks, not the people they once looked down on while climbing over them, the lifeline they once extended to others, like a king offering scraps. It's gone. They built their lives on illusions, fabricated loyalty, rented power, and a security blanket made of lies. When the illusion fell, so did everything else, and now they're surrounded by the rubble, yet somehow they still don't take responsibility. In their minds, they're just victims of bad luck. A little bump in the road. If they could just get one more chance, they believe they could claw their way back to the top. But you've lived through it. You've seen what they haven't. Being broke was never the punishment. It was the consequence, the natural result of choices made in arrogance and cruelty. And now stop. Yes, you. I'm talking to you. This message isn't for everyone. Some will scroll past, brush it off. But if something in your soul just sat up and listened, then you know this is for you. For the ones who never quite fit in, the misfits who see through the veil, the ones who were told to play small, stay quiet, and follow the rules but never could, because they weren't meant to. You were never here to be ordinary. You weren't designed to fit into a broken system. You are the fire in the silence, the storm that shatters illusions. You are the light that refuses to dim, the unshakable, the unstoppable, the untouchable. While the world chases popularity, you walk your own path alone if you have to, not for applause, not for attention, but because it's who you are. Here's to you, the one who takes everything that was meant to destroy you and turns it into something divine, the one who holds a wisdom that can't be taught, only earned. You've walked through fire and came out gold. As for them, they always knew how to perform. For years, they fooled the world with displays of strength and control. Even when the walls started crumbling, they kept the act going. But the curtains have fallen. The performance is over. Behind closed doors, there are no followers, no filters, no stage lights, just them and the truth. And the truth is loud in the silence. They aren't sleeping. You know why? Because guilt keeps people up at night. Because panic clutches the mind and won't let it rest. Because when your empire was built on lies, the quiet becomes unbearable. So they pace. They scroll, they refresh their bank accounts, they check the news, but nothing's changing because the fall already happened and no one's coming to lift them out. They used to roll their eyes at anyone who struggled financially, scoffing at the very idea of living paycheck to paycheck. They treated poverty like a personal failure, as if anyone who wasn't wealthy simply wasn't trying hard enough. They mocked the grind, sneered at sacrifice, and wore their privilege like armor. But now they wake up at 3 a.m. soaked in anxiety and fear, clutching their chest as the reality of their situation presses down like a weight. Their sleep is broken by the very worries they once laughed at. Bills, debts, uncertainty, the terrifying unknown. The tables have turned, and karma didn't knock. It kicked the door wide open. Gone is the self-assured grin they once wore like a crown. Now they sit alone, staring at their own reflection in the mirror, haunted by questions they can't answer. Where did it all go wrong? How did I lose everything? The tears that used to flow so easily when they wanted sympathy or attention are now real, raw, and painful. But not because they've grown or changed. Not because they feel remorse for the people they stepped on or the lies they told. No, they cry because they miss the high, the rush, the power, the control. Their fear isn't of being alone, it's of being forgotten. Their ego is starving, and the silence that surrounds them now, that's what they fear most. You don't have to be in the room to witness their collapse. You've already seen it in your mind's eye, because this was never going to end any other way. They thought they were invincible, that no one could touch them, that wealth and status made them untouchable gods in a world full of pawns. But you knew better. You always did. You saw through the illusion, the smoke and mirrors, the carefully curated facade. You watched them construct a world built on false power and fragile ego, and you recognized the exact moment that world started to crack. You saw it in their eyes, that flicker of panic, that glimpse of doubt when they realized they weren't in control anymore. Now they're crumbling under the weight of exposure. They can't handle being seen for who they truly are. Manipulators, users, frauds, wrapped in designer labels and dripping in entitlement. They're not trying to make amends. They're trying to salvage the scraps of a reputation they once used as a weapon. You see it in the way they've suddenly become humble, the calculated remorse, the crocodile tears, the deeply personal statements flooding their social media pages, filled with platitudes about growth and second chances. It's all a show, another role to play, another attempt to manipulate perception. Now they're launching charity campaigns and making headline-grabbing donations they can barely afford, hoping a few good deeds will cancel out years of damage. They're suddenly speaking about mental health, community support, and inner healing as if they've been champions of compassion all along. But you've seen this movie before. This isn't transformation, it's desperation disguised as redemption. This isn't healing, it's history being rewritten. They're not trying to change, they're trying to erase. Erase the scandals, erase the evidence, erase the past, and replace it with a cleaner, softer version of themselves, a version that never existed. They want the world to believe they were never the villain, just misunderstood. And when they realize they can't fool the public, they'll start trying to fool themselves. You know the script. The media twisted the truth. People are just jealous. This is all a targeted attack. I was the real victim. Every excuse reeks of deflection. Every desperate reach for sympathy is hollow. But here's the difference now. No one is buying it. The audience they once dazzled has evolved. The public that once defended them blindly has woken up. The same people who once sang their praises now scroll past with a shake of the head. Some of them are even the ones revealing the truth, speaking up, sharing receipts, exposing the lies. And through it all, you watch, not with hatred, not with a thirst for revenge, but with unshakable certainty. Every desperate PR stunt, every tearful video, every attempt to reclaim the spotlight, it all backfires because they haven't realized the truth. Their downfall isn't a sob story, it's a reckoning. Their fall from grace isn't unfair, it's overdue, and no amount of rebranding, reposting, or rehearsing will change what's already been revealed. No speech, no influencer collaboration, no candid podcast appearance can scrub away what's been etched into the public consciousness. The curtain has fallen, and what's left on the stage isn't a misunderstood icon, it's a monument to consequences. Frank Sinatra once said, "The best revenge is massive success," and here you are living proof of it. Your peace is louder than their chaos. Your growth is the storm they never saw coming. You've become everything they claimed you'd never be. And while they sit in silence, consumed by regret, you rise unapologetically, authentically, powerfully. They're watching you now from a distance they never imagined they'd be on. Silent, bitter, suffocating on the very arrogance that once made them feel superior. These are the same people who mocked your dreams, laughed at your ambition, and dismissed your potential like it was a joke. But the joke's over. You didn't just survive, you thrived. You didn't just rebuild, you evolved. And their silence, it's not peaceful, it's not wise, it's the sound of someone choking on the ashes of their own downfall while you walk forward into a future they swore would never be yours. They once laughed behind closed doors, betting against your success, whispering confidently that you'd never rise above the place they put you in. To them you were just background noise, a shadow trying to stand in the light they thought belonged solely to them. But look at you now. Not only did you make it, you surpassed every limitation they tried to chain to your name. You didn't just move on, you transcended. You didn't just grow, you soared. You didn't just survive, you evolved into a version of yourself they never dreamed possible. You became the version of you that refused to be defined by their projections, by their manipulations, by their limitations. And while you've risen step by step with quiet strength and unstoppable momentum, they've been crumbling under the weight of the very system they built to control others. You've elevated so high they can't even track your altitude. The whispers that once controlled rooms no longer reach you. Their name used to follow you like a shadow. Now your name echoes in rooms they're no longer welcome in. You've become untouchable, not because you sought revenge, but because you chose healing. You chose yourself. You walked away from the chaos, the drama, the mental traps. You stopped explaining yourself. You stopped shrinking to fit their comfort. And that is the victory they never saw coming. They're drowning now, not in your success, but in the ruins of their own choices. The same games they played so confidently are now backfiring. The manipulation tactics, the guilt-tripping, the gaslighting, the triangulation, they've lost their power. You've grown immune. Their influence is gone. Their words empty. Their reach ineffective. Once they were the ones holding the puppet strings, watching you react, cry, question yourself, but now you're unmoved. You see the strings for what they were, and you've cut every single one. And the irony, they can't stand it, because control was their drug, and you were their favorite fix. They needed your reaction to feel powerful. They needed your attention to feel relevant. But you've robbed them of the one thing they can't manufacture anymore, your energy. Without you, their world lacks color. Their spotlight is dimmed. Their audience has vanished. They thought you needed them to become something. But now they realize they needed you to stay something. You were the one with loyalty, with heart, with depth. You were the one who would have gone to war for them, who would have built with them, grown with them, succeeded with them. But instead of honoring that, they competed, undermined, deceived, and now they sit in silence, gripped by the devastating truth. They could have had you in their corner, but they chose ego over alignment, control over connection, illusion over truth. By the time they understand, you're already gone, already thriving, already building a legacy in spaces they can't enter, creating a life they only pretended to have. No more cryptic messages, no more veiled threats, no more random drama popping up just to keep you entangled. The silence isn't just peaceful, it's loud with confirmation. They've stopped reaching out, not because they've finally let go, but because they've run out of resources, out of leverage, out of strength. What once was their playground has turned into their prison. You used to wrestle with the idea of letting go, wondering if maybe they would change, if maybe there was still something worth salvaging. Now the roles have reversed. They're the ones struggling to hold on, grasping at shadows, haunted by your absence. This isn't peace, it's their defeat and your freedom. It's no longer a dream, it's your reality. A life lived on your terms, a soul no longer caged, a mind no longer conditioned, a heart finally safe from the hands that used to squeeze it for control. And then it begins, the subtle attempts to slip back into your orbit. It's never direct, never honest. A missed call from a blocked number, a DM from a fake profile, a vague just thinking about you text with no accountability behind it. You recognize it instantly. The pattern, the cycle, the strategy. But you're not the same person anymore. You don't see it as coincidence, you see it as desperation. And this time, you're not giving them the benefit of the doubt. You don't decode their passive messages or wonder if there's a deeper meaning. You don't take the bait because you finally understand. When people lose access to you, they don't always come back to make peace. Sometimes they come back to drain you again. They're not reaching out to apologize. They're reaching out because they need something. Maybe it's your validation, your energy, your emotional bandwidth. Maybe they just want a piece of your stability to tether themselves to something unshakable. Their life is in shambles, and they're grasping for something, anything, to give them a sense of worth again. But you're no longer their source of power. You've reclaimed that. You're no longer their emotional safety net. You've cut the ties. You are no longer available for manipulation disguised as concern. You hear their carefully crafted lines. I just wanted to check in. I miss how we used to talk. I've been thinking about everything. But they aren't trying to reconnect. They're trying to recover. They're not trying to rebuild bridges. They're looking for shelter from the storm they created. But you've seen the storm before, and this time, you're not walking back into it. You've outgrown the lies. You've healed from the wounds. You've stopped justifying your intuition. You no longer shrink to avoid offending people who only loved you when you were easy to control. And that's the final shift they never prepared for. The one where you rise unapologetically with a clarity so sharp it cuts through every illusion they ever tried to wrap you in. Let them watch. Let them sit in the silence they tried to curse you with. Because now the silence serves you. It protects your peace. It amplifies your glow. You didn't just win, you evolved. And that evolution, it's your revenge, it's your freedom, it's the closure they'll never get because they lost access to the best version of you the moment they tried to break you. And now that you've found yourself, they'll never find a way back in. They'll come back with soft words and familiar voices, telling you they've changed, that things are different now. They'll say they just want to talk, to reconnect, to clear the air. But beneath their carefully chosen words is a truth they'll never admit. They never thought they'd need you. They believed you'd always be there, that no matter how they treated you, no matter how many times they crossed the line, you'd always be waiting, that you'd answer their call, that you'd pick up the pieces, that you'd rush in and save them one more time. But this time you don't respond, and it's not out of bitterness, not out of vengeance, not out of vengeance, not out of vengeance. You don't need to prove anything to them anymore. You're silent because you've simply outgrown them. You no longer exist in the world they operate in. You've risen beyond it. And deep down, beneath their bravado, they know it, they feel it, and that silent knowing that you've moved on without them hurts more than any confrontation ever could. You didn't even realize how heavy it all was until it was finally gone. For years you carried their weight. The stress, the manipulation, the emotional warfare they waged so subtly it became your normal. You lived in a world of constant defense, always anticipating their next move, always adjusting, overthinking, shrinking. They filled your mind with noise, with drama that wasn't yours, with responsibilities you were never meant to bear. You gave up your peace, trying to maintain a connection that only drained you. But then the silence came. Not the silence of loneliness, but the silence of freedom. No more waiting for the next emotional ambush. No more bracing for impact. No more rehearsing what to say to keep the peace, or twisting your truth to avoid conflict. The storm passed, and in its place came clarity, calm, space. You wake up and the dread is gone. You breathe easier. You stand taller. You smile, not because everything is perfect, but because you're no longer carrying what was never yours. The weight has lifted. And now, in its absence, you're discovering what life is supposed to feel like, light. That space they used to occupy in your mind, it's yours again. That energy you used to spend on survival, it's now fueling your growth. New doors are opening. Opportunities you never had the strength to chase before now feel within reach. Your relationships shift. The real ones flourish. The fake ones fall away. You no longer seek people through the lens of survival, but through peace, connection, truth. You're no longer living in reaction to someone else's chaos. You're creating a life in response to your own vision. And here's the truth you've always known. Their downfall was never just an ending. It was your breakthrough. They built their entire persona on power, cloaking themselves in false confidence and speaking with venom-coated authority. They sharpened their words into weapons, projecting an image of control, but it was all an act. Behind the intimidation was insecurity. Behind the arrogance was panic. Behind the need to dominate was an aching emptiness they didn't know how to face. Their power was never real. It was performance. A facade they sold so well. Even you started to doubt yourself, but not anymore. Because real power doesn't crumble under pressure. Illusions do. And when the mask finally slipped, when the lights went out and the applause stopped, there was nothing behind it. No influence, no substance, no foundation. Just a bitter void filled with the realization that the empire they built was made of lies. They fooled many, but they couldn't fool time. They couldn't fool consequence, and they couldn't fool you forever. Saw it first, the cracks in the mask, the tremble behind the threat, the desperation beneath the control. You saw through the act when no one else could. And they knew that. That's why they tried so hard to silence you, to shake you, to make you question yourself, because they knew if you ever stood fully in your truth, their illusion would collapse. And now it has. Everything they used to keep you small, fear, guilt, confusion, dependency, it's all lost its grip. They tried every tactic, every manipulation, every subtle sabotage, but they couldn't break you. You were always too resilient, too wise, too divinely protected. They wanted to be your ceiling, but you became your own wings, and now the world is beginning to see what you've known all along. They were only powerful as long as people believed the illusion. That belief is gone, and so are they. The question remains, what was the moment you realized their power was a lie? Was it when you stopped crying over their silence and started cherishing your own peace? Was it when you walked away and nothing in you wanted to turn back? Was it when you laughed, truly deeply laughed for the first time in years without feeling watched or judged or controlled? Was it when you finally looked in the mirror and saw yourself, not the version they tried to mold you into? Whatever that moment was, it changed everything. Because once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. Once you feel peace, you'll never settle for chaos again. And once you realize that their power came from your belief in it, you take back the one thing they feared most, yourself. You don't need closure. You are the closure. You don't need their apology. You already gave yourself freedom, and now you're living the life they said you never could. Not to prove them wrong, but to prove yourself right. That's all for today. Dear Father, I pray for the growth of my faith. Help me trust you even when physical evidence is lacking. Let me believe in your perpetual presence, knowing you will never harm me. I understand that your thoughts for me are thoughts of prosperity and not harm, to give me a good future. Thank you, gracious and eternal Father, for always listening to my voice. I offer up this prayer to you in the name of Jesus. Amen. Thank you, Jesus, for your love and provision. I am grateful for your presence in my life and the abundance you bring. If this video resonated with you, please like, subscribe to the channel and share it with those who need to hear this message. Leave a comment below about your journey and how you are preparing for your own triumphant return. If you'd like to support our work, please consider contributing through Buy Me a Coffee. This helps us continually improve our content to offer you the best. The link to Buy Me a Coffee is in the description. No gift is too small, whether it's a penny, a prayer, or a share. Your generosity helps spread God's word and brings hope to others. Don't stop here. Watch our next video for powerful revelations about the signs that reveal you are the chosen one. We've enjoyed following this spiritual journey with you. Thank you for staying with us until the end. Keep shining brightly and embrace your destiny with courage. See you next time. Blessings to all the beautiful souls from the